Bitcoin has been ripping upwards again a few days ago, all the way to 108,000, and it's settling down for now. Now, most altcoins have also settled down a bit. Now, a few people are saying the bull run is over. Most in crypto are expecting that 2025 will be the huge year, some even expecting it to extend into 2026. Now, we don't have a magic crystal ball to see into the future, so we have to look at the charts and see what information we can glean from the price action of today, the recent past, and the historical past. And let that price action show us where the probabilities may be for Bitcoin and for specific alts within the crypto market. So join us. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you, like me, came into crypto because you realize that there is massive potential here for life-changing gains over a greater 48-year period, and you're looking for the discussion on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, much like a Navy SEAL. Looks like my camera is going a little bit crazy. Let me see if I can fix that. We are live, and so, well, I might have to switch it on and then off. Well, now, you still got my audio. Like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, well, you're in the right place and with the right family. All right, camera malfunction, check. Let's see if I can get that back on. We are joined today by Paul from DEVVE, and let me go ahead and bring Paul to join us so that we could talk about what's going on while I fix my camera. Paul, what are you thinking with where the markets are, and what are you looking at?
Yeah, as usual, as you can see, definitely live. So you can't help it when a camera goes down. That's yeah. So what I'm looking at is what I'm looking at always. Really, I'm looking at the broader markets and seeing how they all kind of piece together. Is there a risk-on theme? What are the U.S. equity markets doing? What's lagging? What's leading? What's following it? And what's the dollar doing? What are interest rates doing? Today, we've got an FOMC meeting where they're very likely to cut by 25 basis points. That's already in the price. It's already expected. It could be a case of buy the rumor, sell the fact, or sell the rumor, buy the fact, whichever way you want to look at it, depending on which asset you're looking at. The dollar has been stronger. And my feeling here is that what they're going to say is this is a cut and then that's it. And that's why, in anticipation, the dollar's been bid up and it could turn around. The dollar going down would be extremely good for risk on assets, and they're already doing pretty damn well. So there was an intention to sell Bitcoin as it hit 100,000 on the first hit. We talked about that. But then when it broke through, it really has gone into another level. And it hasn't surprised me that it squeezed up to 108,000. The trend is still up, and until we get a trend ending signal, we have to go with that. There are other markets that have slightly underperformed, like ETH, but generally speaking, this should be a wave into Bitcoin that then goes into the alts, and the bull market for next year, or the risk on patterns that we've been seeing, has been a very consistent story for some time now. So it looks like have we got you back?
Well, camera is still having trouble. I think it's overheated, so I need it off for a bit. So yes, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Should I go through the charts, or did you want to talk about something?
Yeah, let's start taking a look at the charts and let's go through what you see happening on Bitcoin. We had some big movement on Bitcoin and it settled down a little bit. What are you thinking about Bitcoin's price action?
Yeah, well, we talked about this 120,000 target some time ago, didn't we? And we've got an event that we'll have to sort of fulfill when that happens. But yeah, I mean, if we're going to jump straight to Bitcoin, this is the weekly chart. The trend has been up. I think it's ready. It's now ready for a correction. And when I say a correction, I just mean it would probably just go sideways now. So there was likely a lot of people wanting to sell it over 100,000. And when we got that first move up and it dipped below this one here, I think that was the first attempt. And then as it sort of squeezed up and then came off, it's been quite volatile within these weekly ranges. Again, there's this temptation for all the people who were much longer ago looking for 100,000 just to exit. So we've seen people who've been shorting it, and clearly there have been people shorting it, getting stopped out and pushed out of it. So the market will tend to kind of push your stop, especially when it's leverage, which is why leverage is such a dangerous thing to do, especially when it's extremely volatile like this. But the underlying point here is that the trend is still up. So regardless of whether this becomes a bigger correction or just a sideways correction, since the breakout all the way down at 70,000, when all those people said that this trend was over, all the way around 50,000 when they said that was it is still an upward trend. And the thing with these trends is I'm not looking to pick any particular top. So the thing with technical analysis is you don't say, right, 100,000 is going to be the top, or 120 or 150 or 500 or whatever the hell it might be. We let the market tell us when the signs are telling us that the market has topped. And so there's certain things that we've discussed on the show many times about what the top looks like and what the sentiment will be like and what other things will have done. And that doesn't guarantee that it will be all of those things, but it's just a high probability, like other things. It's like it was a high probability trade that when it broke out, it would move higher. You had COD technical analysis where people were saying it was all a rising wedge, when people don't really understand how these charts work. And you get a lot of great information on the internet, don't get me wrong, and there's some really good people, but there's also a lot of false information as well. And it just comes down to everybody has to learn it, kind of learn it themselves in order to see what's right or wrong. That just comes from experience. So with regard to Bitcoin, as I say, this is a trend that is part of risk on that doesn't look like it's going to turn over anytime soon. The whole kind of macro scene doesn't look like it, but it could do. It's possible. I do wonder in some ways whether the market is being gunned to the upside, just so when they get the handover to Trump, it'll be like, well, we gave you the stock market when it was all the way up there, and perhaps in the first few months it has a bit of a correction, and it's done in some ways for political reasons. But either way, whatever the reason, and it's just a random speculation as to what's going on. I don't really care why the market's going up. I care about the direction very much and trying to get that right. And it seems that the bullish side of it is still winning. So it's still right to be bullish.
Yeah, it's gone really crazy. And then usually it trades sideways before another leg up. So if we look at the extension, how far it went up from in the last run, how close are we to that again when it ran up from mid 25 range, or like around 25, 30K, all the way up to 75K, and it took a large run. We've taken another leg up, looking somewhat like that. Maybe there's a little bit more to go, and then it wouldn't surprise me if there's some consolidation.
Yeah, well, look, it's difficult to predict every single move that the market makes, and so I'm not going to try and do that because I just don't know. I know that there's much higher probability points, and I've tried to indicate those points along the way. And I think where we are now, there's still quite an element of skepticism about whether this is too high or not, which makes me feel like it's got more to go. But if you look at that phase that you're talking about, this consolidation, then this upward move, it was punctuated by quite a big move, a correction in percentage terms that shook everybody up at that time. And then this longer consolidation that obviously got a lot of people out, and people weren't interested anymore in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and thought it was all over. It may be that, as has been discussed on this channel by many people who put comments, that whether we argue about whether Trump made it go up or not, the victory, these things kind of dovetail into each other. The fact that cryptocurrencies were doing well and the market environment supported cryptocurrencies means that you might get a president who supports cryptocurrencies. But in many ways, those things are academic. It doesn't really matter, only that now he's known to be a positive factor for it. There could soon be an element of buy the rumor, sell the fact. I don't think initially, because the market hadn't run far enough, but there will be a saturation point for that view. And when the market goes up further, it won't be because of that. It will be for other things, if that makes sense. So the market factors in information like interest rate cuts, things that they know. They know Trump's coming in. It's not a new story anymore. It's not a new story that he's bullish. So if you think about how the markets react to things that they don't know about, you get big moves out of them. But the market knows that Trump is president, and so therefore that's kind of factored into the price. It's been adjusted, so it will go up higher because the macro environment supports it, and that means risk on, and that means companies are doing well. That means stocks are doing well, which we're seeing, which means there's liquidity, which means the banks are lending, which means that it all kind of ties back into each other. So as long as that environment is okay, and presidents can only kind of attenuate or amplify those things, and it will end up getting where it was always going to go anyway. So in the short term, we may be getting a point of saturation, but you could have argued that at other points. And so allowing for a certain amount of volatility, I think, is fair enough. But I do also think that the way the altcoins are looking technically is still extremely interesting, because, like, for example, with ETH, if I could just pop that on the chart here, you can see that it's still pressing this 4030 area, which I really like. And once that breaks, you should have quite a sharp move to the upside. So whether it's because Bitcoin is continuing to go higher, or whether they're going to rise as profit is taken in Bitcoin and moved into other assets, I'm not sure. But still, technically, this looks like a more how can I put it, a better risk reward place to jump in. So if I'm buying here on a breakout, I've got a definite breakout point, and I can see that there's a run of 1,000 points potentially to the upside as it goes into new highs. With Bitcoin, I'm quite happy to trade the trends, as you've seen. I'm quite happy to buy a new high because the market is heading in that direction. But it does feel a little late from a short-term perspective to suddenly decide to be bullish. There was some really good signals along the way. And if one ignored all those signals, we're a bit late into the party to go, right, I'm really bullish. And I think longer term, it will come good. But if I was to do that right here, right now, I'd have to factor in a sort of a retracement to 90,000 or 85,000. I'm not saying it will necessarily do that, but I think you'd have to, just because of the way it's gone up and the way markets are. They don't tend to go, well, this one is going in a straight line, but you can't guarantee that it's going to go in a straight line, I think, is the emphasis to make here. Whereas other charts are looking ready to break out, and their breakout points are clearly defined and very close. It's like pushing against a door that's about to go, and then it opens and off the chart goes.
Yes. Let me share with everybody what I'm looking at. One of the things I do to take a look at where things might go, and it doesn't always play out this way, but this was a bottom and this little consolidation here as it was consolidating. And then I take a line like this and I draw it to how far that leg went. Then I put it at, well, I guess that's not a fair, because that goes from the top. But if I take the top of the breakout to there, and then I take the top of the breakout to here, it sometimes gives me an idea of where the next run may lead to. Now, it doesn't always play out this way, but it often does. And so I do this just to get an idea of where it may go. Well, that might take it to where the Bitcoin top should go if we don't have a super cycle. And it's playing out fairly early. I often think about the 4-year cycle and how does it play out? And the truth is, it's not quite a 4-year cycle because the Bitcoin halving doesn't happen every 4 years. It happens in about 3 years and 10 months. And so the big run happened in 2017. It happened in November and December. 2021's big run was a little bit confusing because a whole lot of the action happened in March with a major pullback. And then when Facebook changed its name to Meta and announced that, the metaverse was a big deal, we had like a metaverse run that happened later that year. And Bitcoin then ran up too and barely surpassed its previous highs from March and then came crashing back down. So it was like a double top peak. But was March really the big run and we just kind of lucked into the Facebook thing? Or was the later one the bigger run? Well, I try to think, when is the blow off top going to happen this cycle? And I'm leaning towards the theory that's going to happen fairly early 2025. But I can't say I know. So I'm looking at data and to see what suggestions or what probabilities it may give me. Now it's running up fairly early this cycle, Bitcoin is, and some of the alts are following, as we'll see. So maybe a lot of the momentum is going to be early this year. Now, some suggest it's going to be a super cycle, and I think it may be. If Bitcoin breaks above 185,000, then it definitely has broken a trend that it's been on as far as how much growth it has each cycle. And then you might categorize it as a super cycle, which means that Bitcoin goes a lot higher than 185. Well, then the alts will probably go a lot higher than they normally would in a normal cycle too. And therefore, we would be having a super cycle. Now, some suggest that Bitcoin and crypto will never come back down. It's a new paradigm. Every time I hear that, it's wrong. Just remember, what does go up does go down. And especially in crypto with the volatility, you see, even we're looking at the Bitcoin chart. It went way up here in 20. So this was the March run, the March and April run. Went all the way to 65,000, came savagely down to 30,000. Then it went back up to almost 70,000. And then savagely all the way down to really 14,000 was the bottom. Now we've run up from 14,000 to 105,000. So this is Bitcoin, one of the most stable cryptocurrencies. And look how savage these pullbacks are. Keep in mind, if we do have a massive run in 2025, and I think we will, the pullbacks are savage. All right. Well, we have a lot of altcoins to look at. We are live. So if you have some suggestions you want us to add in there, Justin asking for FIOS. What's up, guys? Good to see you. Let's take a look starting at, is there any other markets that you've been keeping an eye on? I know Gerome Powell has his announcement earlier or coming soon about interest rates. Any other markets are giving us some indicators on where money flows are going?
Well, other than the usual stock markets, pressing higher, I thought maybe the S&P might be close to a top, but it's still squeezing. The Dow's come off a little bit. I think I said last week I was trying to be clever and pick a top there, and it has come off, but the S&P hasn't really. So, but overall, this is just finer points of an upward trend. So there's no real change. The only other thing to say is here we have Christmas in a week's time. So obviously the markets are going to be closed, thinner, subject to stranger moves between Christmas and New Year, and actually into early New Year when volumes tend to be a bit lower anyway. So there is the possibility of some shenanigans along the way. But generally speaking, steady as she goes. The biggest announcement is obviously today, and it's not the cut. It's how the market reacts after the cut and what the statement is, whether it's political or not. So they might say something like they think rates are going to go up, in order to kind of set the scene for the Trump administration if they're going to be political. But it might also be fairly genuine, because I can't believe that you can have such asset appreciation without some form of inflation coming into the system. So as I've said, I kind of discussed almost directly with Chris on the chat, inflation is coming down the curve. It's just a question of when interest rates are going to start to move up to bring that under control, and how the markets react to it. And the first few moves won't necessarily affect the markets because the momentum will be so strong. But further down the curve, that will be a problem. So this is something we'll be talking about next year. But for the moment, in the very short term, it'll be interesting to see how the dollar reacts. Let's just get the dollar chart up, the dollar index, because that, again, it's hanging in there. It's not actually made any new lows or new highs. If anything, I think it might be threatening to go up again. So this is the dollar index. It had this run from 100 all the way up to 108, had this correction, and it's now lurking around the previous high, sort of edging back up. Now, this would be perfect if the market gets some form of strong dollar announcement, sort of spikes up a bit and then just turns down by the end of the week. And then we would get a little double top like the one we've seen here that took a few weeks to pan out. But look, I have to wait and see what the market does. It's also possible that it breaks up and we get a further increase in the trend. The reason why it is slightly unusual is because some of the commodity currencies that normally would be doing extremely well in this massive macro environment have not been doing well at all. So I can show you a chart of the Aussie dollar, which is a risk-on currency that's been going down really hard, and it's kind of pressing its low. But the most important one out of that is the Canadian dollar, which again today is making a new US dollar against the Canadian dollar high. The Canadian dollar is collapsing almost at quite a sharp rate. The Canadian stock market is absolutely loving it, because the buying power of Canadian assets is if you're outside of Canada, is going up. So you can be picking up assets there cheaper and cheaper if you're American. But this is a similar kind of pattern that we were seeing in terms of the range, and it broke the high and went up. So what we're seeing, excuse me, what we're seeing here is fragmentation, and that's why I've got a slight tinge of doubt about whether the dollar's going to be turning around or not, or at this point. I need that sort of that final acceptance that the dollar's strong, because people have been shorting the dollar. They need to be shaken out of that view, and then it will turn around. So it's a kind of contrary opinion trade. But when it eventually does start to go down, it will ignite even more momentum into the risk on assets that we're already looking at. So my feeling is they're doing extremely well with a dollar that's relatively strong, not massively strong, but relatively strong. So when the dollar starts weakening, that's going to be another very interesting element to push the markets higher.
Yeah, agreed. It's going to be interesting to see how the next 2 months shake out. The US government has a ton of Bitcoin. And rumor is that the Biden administration is going to dump the Bitcoin because they know Trump wants to hold on to it, and that they're going to dump it and then try to send all that money to their different organizations, their whatever, to really try to sabotage the incoming Trump administration. I hope they don't do that. I hope that's just rumors. It would really, really reflect poorly on anyone who, is voting Democrats into office, because they're just, do everything to sabotage the incoming administration, even if it's not good for the country that they're supposed to be beholden to. We'll see how that goes. But Trump going to Bitcoin and buying, if he does put it together to buy 1 million Bitcoin, maybe that does save the US dollar, right? The US dollar has been evaporating in strength, especially the last 16 years. Since 2009, some strategic decisions were made under Obama when the economy was going down essentially they would print their way out of recessions, even more than was already being done under George Bush and before that Bill Clinton, to a huge extent. And Trump's first term wasn't too different. It was maybe the first year and a half until the COVID stuff happened. And then as all these people were laid off, or everything was shut down for a while, the US was printing its way out of it. And this just devalues the US dollar tremendously. And it has seemed forever like the US dollar would eventually go the way of every fiat currency into obsolescence. But Trump's talked about using Bitcoin as a reserve asset for the US. And maybe that is an idea that could save the US, or at least the US dollar. I'm really interested to see. You do see a lot of across the world, different governments deciding not to use the US dollar standard. You see Saudi Arabia, you see essentially the BRICS nations kind of revolting against the power of the US dollar and the control that has been used with that power. And so I'm really curious to see what the Trump administration looks like, what decisions the final, Biden administration makes if they sell off that Bitcoin, forcing Trump to have to find ways and money to buy it back, or how that's going to shake out, and how the first months of the Trump administration really come down. I do remember watching the US economy when Trump first came into office. And I remember the news saying that the economy during the last couple of years of the Obama administration, the greatness of the US is over and everything's going to decline from here. And then Trump came into office. He decreased the red tape. He increased efficiency, and the economy was booming like crazy. And is that kind of thing going to happen again? I don't know. And what does an economic boom end up leading to for the crypto space? So it's going to be an interesting next really 4 months to see how this shakes out, both on the economic side, because the US booming often bleeds into other countries like Canada, into other countries across the world. And what does that mean for cryptocurrency? I mean, every 4 years historically, we've had a massive, massive bull run in crypto, and it's playing right along with that for this coming year. In fact, we're seeing a lot of growth at the end of this year leading up to that. So how is next year going to play out? Strap in for the next 4 months, because it's going to be a crazy ride.
I think also the point about the dollar and Trump, he's talking about tariffs, and I don't think it's going to be as simple as that, especially with Elon Musk having his ear. If you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast with Elon Musk about building a car, what he says is the most important thing is supply chain and how you manage the supply chain. It's actually the process of building it more than anything else that affects everything. Of course, I mean, it makes sense. But if you slap tariffs on certain goods, you could completely destroy that supply chain. And that would have terrible ramifications for America. So I think a lot of the dollar strength is in anticipation of this, of tariffs, that I think will just be a bargaining chip, because it doesn't make sense to bring them in, certainly not willy-nilly. I mean, if he just wants to tax, say, Chinese electric cars, of course he can. But if you start to tax everything, which is perhaps what the market's fearing and trying to reflect and adjust the prices for, it just wouldn't make sense. And it also could start a trade war that would be perhaps detrimental. So I think he's talking tough, and I know you can understand why he wants to protect American markets, but the best way to protect American markets is to make it more efficient to make stuff in America and cheaper, and to beat the competition. Ultimately, that seems a more sensible way. And I guess part of the problem with that is you are dealing with a nation, i.e. China, who is a quasi market economy, in the sense that big companies will get help from the government. I suppose in America it might be said to be similar, because politically there's influence
It has
there.
been similar. Supposedly,
Yeah,
America's not supposed to do that. Oh, I'd say
yeah,
about 30 years they have been, and it's not good, right?
yeah. I
Good.
mean, in the name of competition, you can see how everything is being forced into a certain direction. Um, but yeah, so I think that would be interesting to see when the rubber really hits the road, what will happen there. But that could be behind the dollar moving up too. So
Yeah, I do think that tariff talk is positioning, right? Because think about this. So manufacturers in Germany send Mercedes-Benz and all these different cars into the US, but will not accept Ford and General Motors sent to them. Or they tariff it so high that it doesn't make sense. And so that's not a win-win situation. That's a we win, you lose situation. And so to rebalance that, he's saying, I'm just going to impose all these tariffs, which gets them to the bargaining table. Because one of the bad things about having politicians run your country who aren't already rich is this sometimes is their opportunity to be rich through corruption, right? So a manufacturer, or say a country, Germany, doesn't have to do a fair deal if they can somehow buy off the US decision maker one way or another, to make a deal that's unfair for the US but makes that politician or that decision maker happy. And it seems like a lot of that has gone on for the last 40 years, and probably since the inception of the country. Like, this kind of thing isn't new. And the US is not immune to corruption. I would make the argument that the US is the least corrupt government, one of the least corrupt governments in the world. And that's measured by the economy, because what does the US have that's special? I mean, really, why is it so blessed that it has the biggest economy in the world and the disproportionate amount of wealth in the world? I think it's because of lack of corruption. I mean, if you go to Central America, you have a labor force that is super hardworking, good family values, other things. What is it that holds them back? They have a huge amount of natural resources. I think it's just corruption. They don't have truly free markets. Other places in the world as well have tons of opportunity, but they can't really have it rolled out. Europe has lots of natural resources, different countries. So though the US, let's say the US is 60% corrupt, I I still think that makes them one of the least corrupt governments in the world, in that good ideas can reach the marketplace. The best ideas sometimes succeed, and a lot of times they still don't, because corruption stands in the way. But if you're have a really good idea in Mexico and you don't have the right connections, you don't have a chance in the world of that being rolled out, or it'll be stolen from you, and probably a worse implementation of it will be taken and put into the markets. And that's why the US economy has become such a force. Though there's a lot of corruption in the US, and I think US politicians have been selling out the US for a long time. I think Trump is trying to fix that. We'll see how this plays out, but he is not the same as a lot of what's been going on, where I think US interests haven't been protected. And I don't know if there's some side deals that get cut for these politicians, or why they make these decisions that unilaterally harm the US. I don't know, but I think his tariff talk is just to balance that out. That, to me, that's exciting, because I like to see the governments become less corrupt, and I think he'll do that, but we'll see. I'm also really excited about his very pro crypto talk, and to see what that does, not only in US development, because is it fair to say, I mean, from the UK, you probably see this, that US citizens are treated like the redheaded stepchildren of crypto. A lot of my audience in the US, they can't get on MEXC, they can't get on Binance's exchange, they can't get on most of the exchanges out there. It's not that the exchanges don't want them, is that the US SEC is, trying to say everything's a security, and they aren't compliant with what they need to be trading securities. And if they apply to become compliant with trading securities, they don't get a response from the US SEC. So all these exchanges haven't been able to bring on, just for fear of what the US SEC is doing. They've disallowed US investors from being able to trade crypto, and the US is where most of the money is. So it's really been holding back crypto from what it could be doing. And Trump may change that whole trajectory if he gives over the authority over to, what is it, the commodities division, and takes it from the SEC, and also appoints a new head of the SEC. I think this does amazing things for crypto, where it opens the floodgates of US investment dollars and maybe US institutional investment dollars into crypto. And that's part of why I think this coming cycle may be a super cycle, because US investment dollars will flow more than they ever have before in previous cycles. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it said that pretty much from day one, really. I mean, we've been looking for a bull market, and the macro scenarios of, apart from, when we had the FTX scandal, when it was looking at those lows, we were just talking about this being part of a major correction in a long-term bull market, and we're still in that long-term bull market. I haven't seen the top yet, and echoes what I was saying at the top of the show. We are looking for certain signs to indicate the top is in, and we haven't seen those signs yet. So there seems to be much more to come, and there's other factors that can fall into place to accelerate it. So, and it's there's certain sectors, as you alluded to, like the metaverse that comes into focus. And what we'll see when the bull market is truly running is all the sectors will be running: the gaming sectors, the metaverse, DeFi, the whole lot will be going. And we haven't seen that yet either. So the market will be firing on all cylinders, and anything that's not moving in that environment there will be a problem. Like at the moment, things that don't move aren't so much of a problem because things are starting to turn around. So there's a few question marks, a few worries about things that are still going down, but it hasn't become that frenzied. And I think that frenzied activity is yet to come.
Totally agreed. I know I've often talked with my audience in the private Discord. We have a lot of chats almost on a daily basis. One of them said, I was in the Philippines and the grandma was talking about getting into Bitcoin, and a bunch of the family members talking about Bitcoin and crypto. Oh no, does this mean the cycle's almost over? No. You will see some early people kind of get attention. We're not at the very, very beginning of this run. We're partially into this run. And you'll see this in some of the charts we're going to look at. Like we're going to look at FET's chart, and you'll see that we're not at the lows anymore, the absolute lows of the bear market. We're well past them. But many things haven't run. Some things like artificial intelligence, their narrative has already run some. And perhaps there's a lot of momentum left. But last bear market into the bull market, the ones that didn't gain a lot still went 10x from the bottom. Like that, they didn't really catch traction. Some of the ones that caught traction went 30 to a few of them going over 1,000x. And we haven't seen any 1,000x's yet. We've not really seen, there might be a couple that have done almost 100x. But we still have some room to grow this bull market. Why don't we take a look at FET and see what that chart's looking like?
Yeah, so here we go with FET. It's peaked in March of this year and had this correction as part of this upward trend. Is that the August 5th low that we always, that little signpost there, the August low that it then turned around and has been moving up nicely. The issue here is it's not gone into its new high. It's still sort of halfway along. So there's potential for acceleration. I mean, there's clearly a lot of volume going on. You can see how volumes were lower and have been accelerating up, and have come off a little bit in the last few days. As I say, we're heading into more of a holiday period right now. But overall, the trend is still up, still looking good. Still look for me, it's still bullish, and I think we'll head towards the $3.50 area, and into next year we should be breaking that. So for me, it's a buy.
Awesome. One of the things I like about FET is one of the narratives of crypto is artificial intelligence. And crypto is really, artificial intelligence is a hard narrative to invest in. There's a lot of artificial intelligence companies out there, or they say they're artificial intelligence, but I feel like their actual AI behind it is very weak. What you can run a few lines of code or have somebody who graduated, with an undergraduate degree in artificial intelligence, put them on your team and say, we're an artificial intelligence company. And maybe they'll run as the AI narrative really, really runs. But I try to look for substantive companies to invest in. And FET is a combination of Fetch AI, Ocean Protocol, and Singularity Net uniting to form the artificial superintelligence group through this token merger and trading under the FET token. So I feel like it is something of substance, though it is a fairly high market cap coin. And this reflects kind of the AI narrative runs. You can see from the bear market all the way down to 19 cents here, with the bottom back in 2022 of 6 cents. But from 19 cents to $3.30, pretty much, that's a good 15x already. Then, as often happens, narratives don't run for forever. So sometimes you see a big narrative run, which is what happened in March of 2024. It's since pulling back, and I do think it's going to pull back farther before it's ready to run again. But this is a healthy retracement for those looking to not buy at the highs when everyone's talking about it, and you're looking for a nice area to pull back. You're essentially buying it at half of what the highs were in the last narrative run, and it would be a hold until the narrative runs again. Now, I'm not buying a lot of blue chips. If I were buying blue chips, I would be making just a small buy at this price, and I'd be hoping it gets a little bit cheaper. Just a little bit cheaper. I'd look for this lower trend line, and I'd be buying on this lower trend line. So maybe it comes down a little bit more to $1.40. So not a bad buy zone here, in my opinion. $1.40 would be where I'd be looking to pick it up and pick up some more. And then I would just be holding it till the next AI run. And then I'd be selling it when AI goes crazy and people are saying AI is going to run for forever. So it'd be a small buy if I were buying blue chips. Let's take a look at sell frame. And we have looked at sell before, but not in a little bit. Let's see what's going on with its price action.
Yeah, sell frame. I do remember looking at it at some point, but I can't remember what we said and how long ago it was. But again, interesting that this had based out in 24, so we got the early run. We've got this high water mark at $2.22. Big correction from March again, all the way down to that's the August low. It nearly made another low, but then the trend changed and it's been moving up since September. So this was a nice little breakout, and we're heading towards another breakout at $2.22. Clearly, that is the level to take. That's the big kind of change in dynamics, and I think it will. I think it will do it. I mean, it might not, but the probability suggests that this will go higher. The even is actually starting to look like this is forming. If I change it to a weekly, maybe this will make it clearer. A excuse me, massive inverse head and shoulders. So if the trends come down from here, this is the left shoulder, this is the head, and this is the right shoulder. We're just getting ready for this breakout. Now, what that means in practical terms is this whole area here has just been part of a base building process, and the market should attempt at least to head up towards this sort of area if a price target was by the size of the pattern projected, which is what some people do. I'm not saying it will get there. It's just a kind of rule of thumb as to how far things might go. The problem with that is things can overshoot, and sometimes they don't go there at all. So there's obviously no guarantee with that. But in terms of it forming a base and fitting into the whole structure of the macro bull market and having a very interesting level that we can see very clearly as a good breakout point, it does tick the boxes. So yeah, short term, it might be having a little correction. $1 could be a nice little shelf for it to sit on before it continues higher. But $2.22 really is where it starts to get much more interesting for this. But I would put it on the buy list just to say it should work its way higher. If it spends too much time below $1, then I'd have a few concerns about it. But overall, I think, as given the macro scenario, I'd rather stay on the positive side. And this is the trend rate, which is quite shallow. So it could actually retrace a hell of a lot before it ended up breaking that anyway. But for the moment, it looks like the direction's bullish.
Yes, Selframe is one I remember from the previous bull market, and it made me a bunch of money. So this is one of the reasons I believe in launchpads. I did get some launchpad tokens, and I was able to get an allocation in Selframe. I don't remember the buy price of Selframe; might have been 20 cents. And within like a month, it had gone to. It only shows going to $6 here. It went to $7. I know, because I sold some at $7, and I was just astounded that I'd bought it 20 cents and sold it $7. And launchpads were an amazing thing when the market was going absolutely crazy. And I liked what Selframe was working on, what they were doing. And I remember somebody bringing Selframe to our attention during this savage pullback here, that it had taken and gone up tremendously, and then it pulled back. And right after one of the shows, I bought some Selframe down during these prices. So I'm still holding on to it. And I didn't buy a huge amount of it, but I believed in their vision back when they had launched, and I had just forgotten about them. So thank you to one of the audience members. Oftentimes when I call it a buy and it's a market cap inside of what I'm looking at, like I do later go on and buy. And this was one of the examples. So like later that day, I went and bought some Selframe. So I probably got it, I don't remember, somewhere between 40 cents down to 25 cents. And now it's up at $1.28. So it's big time up. And I don't mind buying when everyone else is scared, when it goes way, way back down like this. It didn't have a clear turnaround that it was going to survive the bear market and do bullish things. But now it's going up quite good again. One of the best places to get good information, if you're looking at it, you can get that on CoinGecko, but CoinMarketCap is often better, usually with really good write-ups about what every project is. So we're not going to go through that today. I think the last time we covered Selframe, we dug more into what they are and what they're doing. But CoinMarketCap is the best for that. CoinGecko I often like because sometimes has a better price history. And I like that the price history went way back to not right when they launched, but not shortly after they launched, and how the price just skyrocketed in March with the bull market and was able to sell actually higher than is reflected here. All right. So at this price, it's not a buy for me. It's just kind of a wait and see. It might be a breakout trade if it breaks the trend line that Paul was sharing and it's a clear breakout. It might be like a short-term trade taking the swing up. I'm not doing those kind of trades this time, but I can't say that. I've done a few trades this cycle, but last cycle I was way hungrier and I was really, really wanting to get up into, I don't know, breaking out, getting enough funds to get the trajectory that my following cycle could be really meaningful. And I accomplished that, but I'm not as hungry as I was last time, where oftentimes for these launchpad projects like Selframe, I probably had to wake up at 2 a.m. in order to participate in the launch of the token and buy the tokens. And I was really, really, really hungry to get that trajectory. And doesn't take too many buying at 20 cents and selling at $7 opportunities to really increase your portfolio so that you have that breaking out of the rat race type trajectory. Cool. Let's take a look next at Affyn, which the price has been doing terrible. So I want to talk about Affyn.
Yeah. I couldn't find it on the other chart, so I've come to Coin Market Cap, and I was having a little sort of read about what it's about. Chart does not look good, so it's probably no surprise that for me, it's definitely a wait, and I'd want to see it recovering or making some form of reversal pattern, or at least closing over a cent, which is this low point. I have to use this chart, which is quite annoying because I can't get rid of this this breakout box that covers up the price. But if I move it out of the way, you can see that low that I'm pointing to around here, and I'll just move it out of the way so you can see it. I want it to get over that level, break this downward trend before I would think about stepping in. It's been around since 22, and it's pretty much been, from this chart, in a downward trend. It did have a good run here in March, or up till March 24. So it turned around on quite a nice little short-term pattern. But this is the level to break at 20 cents, which is pretty far away. So there's a bit of wood to chop. But when anything's so close to its low, the risk is that it just breaks it. And it's had quite a nice green bar here, but it's reversed it so quickly that it doesn't convince me at this point that the dynamics have changed. So again, the trip line or the trip wire would be around a cent to tell me things are changing. And even then, I think I'd be slightly cautious about it. I'd want to see a bit more evidence, unless that's a really sharp move to suggest further momentum. So for me, definitely a wait, bordering on a sell.
Yeah, there's nothing about this chart that indicates that the price is turning around, which is often where I buy. But now, interestingly, a really good contact of mine that often calls like really, really good pickups, he reached out to me and he's like, hey, you remember Affyn? And he's like, I think they have really good things coming. Now, this was months ago. And I think it was before this pump that then happened. And then it has dumped savagely and gone far, far below that. And what's interesting is they've made this strategic play saying they are changing from a metaverse type play to AI. That's interesting. So, dear Affynians, we would like to share an important update that marks a significant milestone journey towards technological excellence. Today, we're announcing a strategic pivot to prioritize artificial intelligence within the ecosystem. Like going through like different artificial intelligence. Our strategic plan to enhance our AI capabilities and to build a robust AI infrastructure. We'll be entering a joint venture with the leading AI company. Okay, so interesting. So they've gone from being a metaverse project to an AI company, or maybe a metaverse that incorporates AI, but they're not really talking about the metaverse stuff anymore. Now, recently, not too recently, about a year ago, a company did that, EOS. And EOS is something that I bought. I started buying during the pullback of the bear market, and it just kept getting cheaper, and I dollar cost averaged into it, and it turned out quite well. EOS went, I think it bottomed at like 2 cents or maybe even a penny, and recently traded as high as like $1. I don't remember where the price is. I think even higher than that, $1.10, after being at 1 cent. And they made a pivot from being a decentralized YouTube competitor to being an AI company. Now, is that going to work for Affyn? I don't know. This is an interesting one to look at from the standpoint of $1.8 million market cap, fully diluted valuation of $5 million. Looks like only 37% of their tokens are in circulation. Their price is savagely punished. If it makes it into the bull market and gets some momentum, and I would give it, say, a 50% chance it does. This is why I sometimes take bets like this. Now, I did buy some Affyn after my friend shared with me about it, and I bought some Affyn years ago at the pre-sale as well, but I bought a little bit more. And I'm looking at this one. I'm considering buying some more, but here's where I think the odds are. 50% chance it doesn't really catch traction, but 50% chance it does catch some traction in the coming bull run. If it does, it can go 20 to 200x from here. And if it doesn't, it goes to zero. And this is why I love crypto over like the casino, because say you're playing the roulette table and you have about a 47 or 48% chance of winning. And if you do, you double your money. Say if you go all on black, you double your money. But in crypto, let's say I'm right about the odds, that there's 50% chance this survives. And if it survives, I can get a 20x to several hundred x from here. Why would you ever do the casino? This is, better than casino odds if you're timing things right in the general market and you're assessing your odds correctly. So Affyn, it is a small buy here, but keep in mind, this is a very, very risky one. I don't really love 50% odds. Most of what I invest in, like OMI, DEVVE, even DEVVE, so I feel like have much, much, much better than 50% odds. And so those are the ones that I primarily focus. For me, this is a gamble. And every once in a while, I take these types of gambles where I feel like it's maybe a 50% chance of winning. But if I do win, the upside is much, much higher than the downside. Cool. So I wanted to cover that because I had passed on to some people about Affyn I shared, and the price has actually dumped below what that pickup price was and has gotten really cheap. But I haven't forgotten about it. I'm keeping an eye on it. It's definitely a risky play at this point. That chart looks savagely devastating. But if it turns around, the potential upside is tremendous. It's at half a penny here. The previous high was $1.64. If it goes to previous highs, that is, goodness, like a 300x from here. All right, guys, let's take a look at DEVVE.
So DEVVE, we talked about it last week, and we mentioned that the big resistance point was $1, that it should squeeze to $1 and then come off, which was the support point on the way down. I may have showed a slightly different chart, but this has got the main levels. So it's hit $1, big round number. Of course, there's going to be some profit taking. Lots of people with losses here looking to get whatever profit they can. So it's had a reaction. But overall, the trend is still up. So whilst it's having a consolidation, it may even go on for a bit longer. This is the main angle of trend. And there's really good support around 49.50 cents. I wouldn't want it to come that low. I'd like it to follow this sort of shape in terms of squeezing upwards. But I can understand that it might want to consolidate around $1 or just below. Then when it gets through, maybe consolidate above $1 before it then makes an assault on this $2.50 high. So overall, it's still a buy for me. But it's just reacting to some of these big levels. And again, that's understandable. If it breaks below this trend line, that's my parachute level. That's where I start to think about changing strategy, because it would mean the trend rate has fallen to a level that requires further analysis or a change in strategy. But for the moment, it's above good support. Sometimes markets like to come back and retest. This did do a little retest of the 49 level on the breakout. So it broke out here, came back touched it and then had a good run, but it's not completely run away either. But as we're seeing with some of the altcoins, they're correcting anyway. So there's this a bit of a pause, bit of a desire to grab some short-term profits, which is what you'd expect. But again, if you put it in the context of the longer term, if you're going to take, if one is going to analyze the markets within that framework, it seems better to take bullish opportunities and to go with things that are moving, rather than well, again, I say that, but it depends on whatever strategy an individual wants to put forward. But I'm thinking more longer term into kind of next year rather than next week to week. And although we can follow it week to week, the trend is, nothing's really changed since we looked at it last week, other than it hitting this $1 level and just coming off.
Yes. Now, later today, having an interview with Austin from the DEVVE team. So join us for that. That's at 11:30 Pacific time. So what's that? 2 hours from now. So join us for that. Also, Paul is staying with us after this for a private Rainmaker chat. So join us for that. If you're in the Discord, you will have a link in there. As soon as we wrap up here, we'll be moving over to that chat and we get some access to ask your questions directly to Paul. DEVVE, I'm a big fan of, and we have been following this, but I want to step back and I want to show you what the chart used to look like. And remember, I did some interviews with the DEVVE team, Tom Anderson from the DEVVE team, while this was punished. And this encapsulates what I look at in the crypto space. Number one, there is a 4-year cycle. I love to accumulate during bear markets and buy when I think things are cheap. And then I'd love to wait till the momentum turns around. And specifically, I look for projects that I think have strong fundamentals. I think DEVVE has incredibly strong fundamentals. Join us for that interview later today, and you'll see from Austin what he sees about it. I feel like he's very articulate. Does a good job laying out why DEVVE is special. It is the fastest layer 1 blockchain that I'm aware of out there, blowing away its competitors tremendously, doing 8 million transactions per second. Has the ability to integrate between different blockchains much simpler than all the other blockchains can do. And it interacts with a programming language that 80% of programmers across the world already use. So should DEVVE catch traction, it can integrate with existing Web 2 companies' technology far faster than any of the other blockchains can. So I feel like this is one that has potential to go absolutely crazy. Now, if you remember, I was talking about it when it hit 11 and 12 cents. I said that was way too cheap. It should never hit that price. But sometimes in the crypto market, things do, and that it was an absolutely incredible price. Well, unfortunately, it's not still at that price. It recently went all the way. It doesn't show it, but it did hit $1, and it's trading now around 69 cents, which I think is a healthy retracement after such a big run. In fact, let me pull up Gecko Terminal has a better chart that's more accurate that shows since the inception of DEVVE. So I've been covering DEVVE since long before their token launched. Their token came out at 30 cents, went up to 40 cents, pulled back to 30 cents, and then went off to the races, hitting $2.10 and over that. I don't know what caused this pump other than not a lot of tokens being in circulation, and it pumped tremendously. But this nice pullback, see, these early days, it's a little bit risky to buy because you just don't know what's going to happen. It went absolutely crazy, but giving us this nice pullback. And this is where I really like to accumulate on things. Now, DEVVE is one of my largest positions in all in crypto because I strongly believe in this one. But I was able to buy at the really cheap prices, not at these prices. Do I think it has a lot more upside to go? Well, I personally think it has a ton more upside to go. But if you're curious and want to see more about this one, join us for that interview with Austin. Because at the end of the day, it's not about what I like, what I think. It's about what you like and you think. And one of the goals of this channel is to create the most informed audience in crypto so that you're making informed and not emotional decisions. So sometimes we get scared that's going to run away from us and we chase into things. And I don't want that. I want people making a fully informed decision on what it is they're buying and what it is you're hoping for. So join us for that interview in 2 hours with Austin from the DEVVE team. Is it still a buy for me at these prices? Well, I'm so heavy on this. Personally, I'm not buying at these prices. Would I if I didn't have exposure to them? Yes, I would, especially during this nice pullback here. This is a nice retracement. Often the bull market is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So yes, had I missed this zone, this would be where I would still be getting in. What is the potential upside on this? Well, potential upside, join us for the talk with Austin, where I'll discuss further what I like about it and who I think its competitors are and where their market caps are. All right. Yeah, it is a buy for me at that. I am not personally buying at this because my bags are completely loaded with DEVVE. Let's take a look over at COPI, cornucopias.
Yeah. So, oh, we got an echo. Oh, there we go. Right. So, cornucopias. It is in a. I think the last time we talked about this, it was possibly in the middle of this correction, and it's still kind of halfway. It's sort of in a central point, a sort of average point on the chart from 2022. So we've seen a high here of 7 cents. We've seen a high here of 13 cents, and we're trading around 4 or 5. It had a spike up here. People took profit on it. So what I'm saying by all of this is it's very neutral. There's nothing for me to really get that excited about, other than it's good that it's changed its trend from here and it is moving up. I don't like the way this is spiked in this way here. That's usually a sign of short-term kind of panicking in, and it's rejected the highs in the sense that it traded up nearly 8 cents, but then it was sold into aggressively with 2 red candles. I mean, that's not, look, it's not the end of the world, but it's just like, well, what's going on here? Why was it sold so aggressively? But overall, I think it's fairly neutral. And, you know, I would just say if this was the only thing I could trade, I might have a small position in it because it's be the broader market that would dictate that I feel bullish about the sector. And I'd say, well, at least it's moving up from its lows and it's off its sort of August lows from 2022, going back a bit. So it has some positivity about it, but other than that, I would prefer to see it breaking through and holding over this 6 cents level. That was the breakdown point, this double top. That was where the trend changed. There was potential to kind of pick it up around here when we got where was the August point that we always reference. For some reason, oh, there we go. Let's just go back there and see. So yeah, so it's trending down from the 5th of August. So it's there. I was expecting it to be here, of course, because we've seen so many markets that have based out at that point. But this one just continued down, and it took until October before it went back up again, which is interesting that it was slightly delayed. So yeah, I'm neutral on it. I would say it's a wait. I want to see a bit more evidence before jumping in.
Yeah, let's see. Cornucopia is one of my favorite blockchain gaming projects. I really like the transparency of the team. I've been involved in this one and had some AMAs and interviews with the team since before their token was even live, I believe. I really like Rob and Greg. I like that they have the COPI Cafe and that you can see what's going on. I really, yeah, I feel like leadership makes a big difference, and I see good leadership there. They've created a really strong community around it, which is important. And I like what blockchain gaming, how it's bringing real asset ownership to gaming. And I think asset ownership is going to transform the landscape of gaming. And their game that they're bringing together looks really cool. In fact, it's kind of got a metaverse type feel. And should they be able to integrate so multiple people can be on the same servers at the same time, perhaps it actually ends up being one of the first metaverses, because the problem with metaverses is that they're boring. There's not really anything to do. But when it's revolved around a game, isn't it kind of a metaverse? Like, wouldn't World of Warcraft actually be one of the first metaverse projects out there, successful ones, that it created ways for people to interact with each other like a metaverse, but it was centered around a game? One of the downsides of World of Warcraft is you didn't really embrace asset ownership, where you truly own the assets that you were accumulating through all the time that you spent playing the game. And that's what blockchain gaming brings to the space. And Cornucopias, they're getting ready for their land grab soon. So if you have some land that you buy on, say, jpeg.store for Cornucopias, you'll be able to actually then go in and select which piece. It's going to be an interesting way that they're doing it, because you could have like the actual small plot of land, but you have to go and get there in the metaverse and be the first to actually claim your deed to that actual particular land piece. Yeah, otherwise, if someone else gets there first, you then have to go get a different one that hasn't been claimed yet. And it'll be fun to see how that comes together. Maybe this price rise is in anticipation of that, as people are getting excited for that. Sometimes it brings some awareness. We saw the prices come right back up to this. Now, it rose before, as people were talking about blockchain gaming in October. Blockchain gaming took off, and Cornucopias lagged that a little bit. I talked about it here that Cornucopias hadn't yet caught the momentum. I felt like it was underpriced in that, well, then it went from underpriced to it swung to the upside. It swung all the way back down to these similar lows. Now it's taking off again. But I like to buy cheap, and Cornucopias isn't as cheap as it was since the blockchain gaming narrative isn't really running right now. I suspect, or maybe I hope, that it will come back down for a juicy buy before the greater run, and that this isn't a buy zone for me here. So it's not a sell zone, but it's not a buy zone. It's just a wait. I really like this project long term. I own a lot of their token. I own a lot of their land. I'm excited about where this is going, but I like low prices, and it's not at a low price right now. So it's definitely a wait for me too. Let's take a look at Flow token. And then I think we have to move over to our private chat. Even though there's a few suggestions, I'll take a look at a few of the comments. We'll talk about them, but I don't know that we'll have time to get into them much.
Yeah. So the chart of this is quite interesting in the sense that, you know, we had this strong downward trend. It made a low, and then it's been basing out for quite some time. I like this rally here, and I like the fact that it's heading towards this really important resistance that I've shown on here at $1.67. I think ultimately that's where it's going to go to, and it's going to break it. So I would be using this as a support area for it. So going in sort of gradually until it can, with the idea that it could retrace all the way back to sort of 70 cents, maybe even down to 63. But ultimately, I'm looking for a move towards $1.67, and then for that to have completed the base. We got a break of a downward trend line, which was in effect or started in April 21. So when the market does this, it is really trying to turn this battleship around. It can take a bit more time for it to do it, which is why I'm just prefacing what is a bullish view with some sort of general caution about where the market might head before it actually starts to go higher. But I do think ultimately, whatever the short-term direction is, whether it's back down and then up, or whether it just consolidates here and then goes straight up into next year, I would expect it to be through this $1.67 area, because this does look like quite a nice reversal pattern that's forming, and we've got very solid support down here. So I think that's, for me, it gives good technical points with which to get in. I like the fact that it's responding smoothly, and I actually like the fact that it's reversing out from quite a severe bear market, because then it gives me some targets on the upside, which I would discuss if it breaks $1.67 in due course. So at this point, it's a buy, but it's not an aggressive one. It's a kind of an early stage buy for me.
Yeah, I like Flow for specific reasons. Number one, I like the narrative that they're in, digital collectibles narrative. So they have essentially taken collectible cards to a new level. So for a long time, collectors that like baseball or basketball or sports in general, they would collect a snapshot, like a picture, of one of their players during a certain season. And those have done well historically for collectors if they're sports figures that become very popular over the long term. Well, they've taken that to a whole new level in that NFTs allow you to have an actual video moment attached with it. So you can see the whole play. So whether it's basketball and, one of your favorite characters doing a major slam dunk, or it's some amazing catch in American football, that they're in the end zone and they make a one-handed catch or whatever it is. You can have not only your favorite players, but favorite moments captured in videos. And I think that has long-term collectability. I think this idea of collecting is going to go digital in a massive way. And Flow is one of the leaders in that. Flow is the token associated with Dapper Labs, who has NBA Top Shots and NFL All Day and UFC Strike, and also some Disney collectible moments. And this is what I like about Flow is I think it's a good narrative. I think it's a strong company with good leadership. It's in a market cap range that I can't say I love. But a lot of times people who are non-crypto people, they often ask me like, oh, what are your thoughts? What would you be buying if you're me? And I'm like, well, you and I are in very, very different spaces. Like I 7, almost 8 years experience in crypto now. And prior to that, a whole bunch of experience in things. So I buy risky stuff that you just wouldn't know how to buy. But if I was brand new to crypto, yet had the knowledge that I knew, but didn't know how to get all these deeper exchanges and buy like some of the things that I'm really interested in, and I didn't want to pay much attention to crypto. I just wanted to buy something, and then when everyone's talking about it and then sell it. Flow would probably be my go-to because I could get on Coinbase, I could easily buy it, and then when I'm ready to sell, I can easily sell it with just having access to Coinbase. And so Flow is an easy one to buy and probably an easy one to sell when they go to sell it. Now, it's not as lows of like 50 cents like it was here, but it's still at a really good price, in my opinion. And you see this trend line here. It's bounced off it. This is the third time. I think in the near future, it's going to break that. And so it's got this nice retracement from there. It's not as cheap as it was here. But a lot of the people I'm thinking of, if I were in their situation, I was focused on my career, not really focused in crypto, and there was something that I could make a 3x or 5x, or if I'm really blessed, 20 or 40x. I think even from these prices, Flow falls into that category. And so from that standpoint, I like it, even though its market cap is higher than I normally like. 1.32 billion. Where do I think this can go? From this, I think it can go 20x or more from here. And for a lot of these people, 20x would be incredible. Like a 10x would be incredible. So I like it from that standpoint. And from that standpoint, it gets a buy. Do I own this in my portfolio? I own some. I own just a little bit. It's one of the few larger market caps I own. But if I were a newbie to crypto and I want to stay away from the really risky stuff like meme coins and stuff, and I wanted something that was more stabilized, Flow would be that buy for me. I do think that narrative, it hit last cycle some. I think it has much bigger upsides than what we've seen. Wealth abundance. I'm not going to tell you what the best way to leverage a new business credit card to capitalize off of this whole time. No.
I think that's
Don't
sarcastic. It
believe
must be.
that. Well, and so I know some people that have taken that risk and it worked out for them. I know some people that have taken those risks and it did not work out for them. Timing is everything, and I think the timing is decent for that, but it puts you in a risky space to go that route. So I don't ever recommend people do that. Litcraft and ICP, I would love to get into Litcraft. In fact, we have a couple people asking that. Omi, so today's going to be a super busy day. We've got a private Discord with Paul now. I will be having an Omi is My Homie show later today with Randy and Dr. Stuff. So join us for that, and we'll be talking about Omi there. Litcraft, join us probably in the discussion with Austin. We'll probably get into Litcraft as well and be able to go over that. So Justin is asking for FIAS. The same answer. FIAS is the token associated with Litcraft. So definitely join us for that. We will also be having a discussion with our private Rainmaker in the Discord with Austin after the public show. So make sure you join us both for the public. And if you've joined the Patreon and have access to their Discord, then we're going to have a private chat in Discord as well. Paul, thank you for joining us today. Any final thoughts?
No, not really. Just that next Wednesday is December 25th. So it's going to be Christmas. Wishing everyone a very happy Christmas holiday and other holiday types that you might be enjoying. And we'll have to look at our diaries to see what we can work out for the next coming shows, because January the 1st is the week after that. But, just say thanks to everyone for watching and for your picks. And if we don't speak this side of 2024, see you in the new year.
Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. And I will give you the link for the follow-up chat through Rainmaker Discord in just a minute. I'm just going to wrap up with a few thoughts.
Okay, thanks so much.
Wow, everyone. Do you remember it was just like last year? And I would often conclude with the crypto market bottom is already in, and good decisions made during these months leading up to the blow-off top will lead to life-changing ones when that blow-off top happens. We're seeing a little bit of that come to pass, in just a little bit. But from where the lows were, prices are up. It feels like a lot from those lows. Now, a lot of when you're dollar cost averaging, what happens is at this point, you're usually close to a break even. Sometimes you're ahead, depending on what kind of decision you made and what your dollar cost average prices were. Sometimes you're still a little bit behind. And that's a very okay place to be. There is still some of this bull run left. In fact, the major action hasn't happened yet. And that's going to be exciting to see. Thank you for joining us. If you're in the Discord, jump in there and I will give you a link there so you can join the private chat with Paul. Thanks so much. See you all soon.